Andy Warhol once said, either once only or every day. And I absolutely love this quote because when it comes to habits, there's no in between. Habits are about consistency and not about perfection. However, habits are more than just repetitions. And in this video, I'm going to share the things that most people don't talk about when it comes to habits. If you check out other videos on my channel or you've done some research on habits yourself, you'll know that habits are a behavior loop: the cue, the routine, and the reward. However, there's a hidden loop that nobody talks about. And so that's what I'm going to share in this video. Let's start at the beginning of this loop. The beginning of this loop is the desire or the craving. This is where habits are born. You may be craving sugar. You may be craving progress. You may be craving peace of mind. Whatever the case may be, your behaviors are all stemming from a particular craving or desire. The thing that people don't tell you is that these desires or cravings can change over time based on the habits that you're engaging in or building into your life. This matters because this ultimately shapes who you are as a person. An example for you to think about: when you think about the habit of running, a person doesn't just crave the act of running itself. They're craving the endorphins or the clarity they experience while they're running, or that they might feel after the fact. By taking a closer look at these desires and cravings, we can better understand who we are as people and the behaviors that we do on a daily basis. The next important thing to think about in this hidden habit loop is willpower. A lot of studies have been done to figure out if willpower matters when it comes to creating successful habits, and if willpower differs in people who are defined as successful and people who are defined as less successful. One thing though that is for sure is that we don't have unlimited amounts of willpower. And so a helpful way is to think of willpower as like a muscle, something that you can exercise and train over time so that it gets stronger. When you first decide to start a new habit or to engage in a new behavior, you will feel like it's very taxing and very demanding. Well, that's because you require a lot of willpower to make the decision and the effort to do it. It's not yet automatic. So by exercising this muscle, willpower, it becomes easier over time to the point where we don't have to think about this behavior anymore, and it becomes something that's ingrained in who we are. So the next logical question would be, how do we exercise this muscle? How do we make our willpower stronger so that we can cement habits much easier? Well, in her book, Better Than Before, Gretchen Rubin highlights what's called the 4 foundational habits. She highlights these because these are simple, easy behaviors that you can focus on in your daily life that help to build your momentum and to help strengthen your willpower. By nailing these 4 foundational habits, you help to develop a stronger base of self-control. As a reminder, these 4 foundational habits are eating, sleeping, moving, and decluttering. By focusing on these little things in your life, you get a stronger base of self-control, which then allows you to focus on other habits that may require more willpower. And once you create this habit of focusing on all of these little things, you in turn make yourself more capable of starting other habits and ensuring that they last and stick. I found this idea of the foundational habits to be so crucial because what's really going on here is that you're teaching yourself how to regulate your impulses. We've all felt the impulse to not want to make our bed, to not want to brush our teeth, to not do all these little things on a daily basis. But those are actual lessons and examples for us that we can use every single day to get better at regulating our impulses. And then we can turn around and use that new strength to build stronger, lasting habits. Moving further along this hidden habit loop, it starts with the desire, the craving. Then we recognize the importance of willpower. If the willpower gets you started, then it's important to realize that it's the systems that's going to keep you going. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, once said that you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. The systems matters. So what does this mean? Well, the way we design our environment actually plays a huge role in whether or not we are creating lasting, effective habits. The goal here should be to make good habits easier and bad habits much more difficult. A great way to think about environment design is to think about the space like your home that you spend a lot of time in, and think about all of these triggers that lay around you. If you have a bad habit of scrolling at night before you go to bed, then remove the trigger, make it more difficult. Place your phone on a table far away in a completely different room. If you want to get better about drinking protein after a workout, set out everything on your counter before you go to the gym, so then you can come home and everything's already laid out for you and it's easy. These are super small and simple examples, but there's so many ways that you can design your environment so that the habits that you are trying to integrate into your routine stick. To take this one step further, rewarding yourself also plays a crucial role in ensuring that these behaviors you're trying to create for yourself are actually sequenced into your brain so that your brain remembers them and that you can do them over and over again. One way to do that is to simply trick your mind by smiling more. If you do an action, if you do a behavior and you smile, you're tricking your brain into thinking that it's a positive thing, and your brain is more likely to remember that sequence of behaviors and repeat it. What's something else that people don't tell you? Well, sometimes the act of just showing up is the reward itself. Maybe you struggle to get to the gym and you only decide to work out for 15 minutes or much shorter than what you would normally do. That's still a W, and that's still going to be a reward for your brain and will help you to build that habit into a lasting one. Going back to this loop, it starts with the desire or the craving. It requires some willpower. You got to make it as easy as possible for yourself. And then what it really comes down to is how often you can show up for yourself. This matters because what you're really doing is you're stacking votes for who you are as a person, and in turn, that shapes your identity. This is the whole idea behind book names and ideas like Atomic Habits and Tiny Habits. The idea is that all of these tiny little actions on a daily basis matter. They compound over time. Think of every single little action you do as a vote for the kind of person that you want to be. It's not about going 0 to 100. It's not about doing the most that you can. It's about showing up consistently over and over again to the point where you start to see yourself differently. Think about how different these two statements sounds. I need to read more versus I'm someone who reads. What's the main difference between these two statements? Well, how often do you show up? How often do you do actions that stack in favor of the person who reads? If you only read every so often or you're not consistent, you'll never get to the point where you can call yourself a reader or you'll view yourself as a reader. But if you're focused on reading 5 minutes, 10 minutes every single day, and showing up consistently, you'll get to the point where you actually see yourself as a reader and you can identify as a reader. As we near the completion of this hidden habit loop, you'll eventually get to experience something known as an atmosphere of growth. Admittedly, it takes a while to get to this point, but speaking from personal experience, once you reach this atmosphere, this level, it's inescapable and it will be something that you become addicted to. Once you find yourself inside of this space, the things that you'll experience will be as follows. Everything that you do or everything you experience, you'll look at it from the lens of how is this making me a better person, or how is this influencing me in a positive way? Is this the type of behavior that aligns with my values? Is this helping me become the person that I want to be? What's really crazy about focusing on your behaviors and sticking to them and allowing them to shape and mold you as a person is that you get to experience a change in environment and your self-image. Another example from my own life, if I make it a habit to journal every single day, this journaling every single day will inevitably influence me because I'm working on the process of getting thoughts from my mind onto paper. That will inevitably lead to me having conversations about it with possibly my therapist or friends. That will in turn bring me new ideas and influence me to write more. And it'll create this incredible loop where all I'm focused on is growth. But why is this atmosphere of growth so important? Well, because it'll eventually influence your desires and your cravings. And this brings us full circle back to desires, where habits are born. Over time, you will notice that good habits inevitably rewire what you crave. You might have this familiar craving of wanting to just veg out on the couch and to watch Netflix. But then as you've experienced this atmosphere of growth, you may also have this new desire or craving, which is to work on a side project or do something that makes you feel good. It's not to say generally that one is better than the other, but you will eventually recognize, having gone through this loop and having shaped your identity, that one is just much better for you and you would prefer that one. That's when you know that you've truly shifted your identity. I'd like to wrap up by asking a simple question. What kind of person do you want to be? Do you want to be the person that's fearful of who they might become, constantly wondering what if, or constantly being stuck in the getting started phase? Or do you want to be the person that's constantly expanding and constantly growing and challenging themselves and experiencing the beauty of transforming your identity in a positive way? Habits are not about forcing yourself to do something, but rather about getting clear on what it is that you want in the first place. Remember, don't forget what Andy Warhol said, either once only or every day. Conveniently, I made a video about the 4 foundational habits, as I mentioned earlier in this video, which you can check out linked here. Thank you for watching as always, and I'll see you in next week's video.